I got some fact or fictions for us, and we can rotate around who goes first. So we'll start with Mr. Chris Ballas. You can start on this one. But Blake Corum coming back healthy, potentially play more games than he did a year ago. Blake Corum, fact or fiction, will rush for either more yards or more touchdowns than he did last season. So one or the other or both. 1,463 yards was his total there, 18 touchdowns. Will he surpass one of those numbers?
That's a great question, right? Because Donovan Edwards is going to get more carries, supposedly, or you're going to get him on the field as a receiver a little bit more and get him some touches that way. Boy, that's a great question. But I am going to go with fact because I think he's going to have some really big games. And I think that, you know what, they want him to have, I love it. Nice. Look at you, Clay. I want him to, I really believe that, you know what, he came back and you want to reward a guy like that, with the potential for a Heisman Trophy. And I think he will get every opportunity to do that. And I think Donovan Edwards will get more carries, but I think Blake Corum will up his game to the point that, yes, he is going to eclipse that. And I do think that he will be, assuming he stays healthy, one of the 5 guys invited to New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony.
Clay, can you just run down what the numbers what the numbers were again?
Yeah, 1,463 rushing yards and 18 touchdowns.
I'm going to go fiction on that just because, and not because I don't think he's going to be healthy and because he's, I think he's going to be every bit the guy that he was. But I also think that Michigan's going to be a little more careful about his workload and work Donovan Edwards a little bit more. Assuming both stay healthy. There are times when Blake has had to carry more of the load because Donovan hasn't been healthy out there. So assuming good health, I'm going to say fiction, but not off by much. I just think that those guys are going to have pretty spread out production. I think it will probably be pretty equal production, honestly. So I'm going to say fiction, but just barely. So,
okay.
Either or, right? Did you say either more than 1463 or more? Yeah, because I do think he'll be the short yardage back down there. I don't think they're going to be handing off to Kalel Mullings much at the goal line. I think it's going to be Blake Corum when he gets the ball down there with those huge thighs. So I'm going to take the chance that it's going to be one of those two he's going to eclipse.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to go fact on this, and I think 18 might be harder to attain, even though he will be that short yardage guy, no doubt, than the yards. I think he can get the yards, with more games. And, he played in 12 games last year, but one of those was the Ohio State game. So I'm going to go with fact, probably on the yards, but I get it either way, right? If we happen to revisit this after the season. And then the second one, let's talk about Donovan Edwards, a little bit more offense focused. We can revisit some or visit some on defense later on in the summer as we get to the doldrums here. But Donovan Edwards will break Michigan's single-season record for receptions by a running back set by Chris Perry, who had 44 catches in 2003. So if they play 14 games again, they could play 13. They could play 12. I wouldn't assume that happens. They miss a bowl game. Or they could play 15. But if it is 14 like it has been the last 2 seasons, that'd be just over 3 receptions a game. So let's start with Anthony on this one.
I'm going to go fact. 44 is not a lot. I could see him somewhere in that 50 or 60 range. I think that 3 or 4 catches a game probably seems about right for him. Again, they're going to want to mix him in as a running back, obviously, as well. We've talked about how maybe there's a little bit of potential there where you can use him in that kind of Deebo Samuel type of role, but I think 44 catches, assuming he stays healthy. There could be a couple games where he has 7, 8, 9 catches, depending on what defenses are giving Michigan, especially if these teams are trying to take away the deep ball again, and you've got all this space to work underneath. So I'm going fact with that.
I'm going to go fiction, and I'd love to see it be fact, but I want to see him on the field at the same time with Blake Corum. I want to see him in the slot. Mike Hart said he could probably line up at slot receiver at many of the programs in this country and start. And I think he should. Do I think he will? I've got to see it, because I think you've got a head coach who's kind of set in his ways, right? And we've seen that. I do think he'll get his touches, and I think you'll see him get some more touches at running back as well. But, That is kind of a lot of catches for a running back. And I remember, I think it was Chris Howard too back in 1997 had quite a few. Might have even been Michigan's leading receiver back then in terms of catches. So, and it wasn't that many, obviously. So we'll see. But I'm going to go with fiction. Go less than. Can I? Because I'm not supposed to say the under on this show. So
no, you can't.
Okay. However, I do think, I think he'll be in the 30-something range, but they better get him the ball, guys. They have to.
Yeah, I'm going to go fiction on this one too. It does, when you look at the number, like, okay, just get him 3-4 a game, maybe one game at 7. It's just hard to do. I was looking at the Big Ten numbers from last year. Only one Big Ten running back had anywhere near this, 55 from Evan Hull from Northwestern, but they had absolutely no one on their offense. I think Michigan has enough options to go to, including with the tight ends, including with even Blake Corum on some screen passes. But I think, bulk of the running back receptions will come from Dono. But I'm just going to say, like, it's just hard to do. And looking at the record book, there are a few guys in the 30s. I think top 10 would even be like 29. I was looking at it earlier this morning. So he's easily, I think, if he stays healthy, going to get in that top 10. Maybe even top 5. I think he needs to get to 35 to get there. But just 44, however the math is going to play out, I just don't see it happening. I think it absolutely could, but I would guess that it does not. I guess I will start on this next one. Fact or fiction, Michigan will have 3 or more regular season games that are either a loss or are decided by single digits this season. So they had 2 last season, Illinois and Maryland. They had 4 in 2021, including a loss to Michigan State. I'm going to go with fact that they will have 3 or more. I could see them losing a regular season game. You look at Ohio State, Penn State probably is the most likely there. And then those same ones could be within single digits. And I think I said it on the show maybe a couple weeks ago, but when I look at that Nebraska-Minnesota stretch, I just have a feeling, guys, that one of those games is going to be close. And you never know with, even the Maryland game. Yeah, they scored a garbage, time touchdown late, but the score ended up in single digits. So I'm going to go with fact that there will be 3 or more regular season games that are either a loss or decided by single digits.
It's hilarious. If you would ask this question last year, what would the 2 teams be that were within a score of Michigan? And you said Illinois and Maryland. That would have been crazy. But you know what? That's college football. And that's why you can't take anything for granted. So, man, these are great questions. You know what? I am going to go fact as well. I think Penn State is a loss. Maybe at this point, I have the right to change my mind. But you know what? It is so hard to go through a season undefeated. And if you had to pick one loss on the schedule going in, Ohio State could possibly be up there. But I would think it's going to be a road game. I think about 5 of the last 7 on the road, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. So. Nebraska, they should win that game. But we were there a couple years ago, guys, when that place is crazy. I was just talking to a Nebraska reporter today, and I said, best environment for college football I've ever been in for a night game. It was absolutely nuts. And we've seen how that can play. Emotions can play factors in games. So we'll see what happens. But I'm going to go with you, Clay. I agree with that. And it's just win. I don't care about style points. You know what? Hopefully only one of those 3 is a loss, if that.
Disrespectful to the Rutgers night game atmosphere, I have to say.
When everybody
it's a literal circus, a literal carnival.
It is.
It is. I'll say fact as well. Now, is this just regular season?
This is just regular season. Yep, just the 12 games there.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. I'll go with that in the regular season. You've got the rivalry games that you have. You've got a road game at Penn State. There's always I always call them the oh shit games, right? There's always at least one of those. So, yeah, I'll go fact on that one. I think Ohio State's going to give them a battle for 4 quarters this year. I do think Michigan will win, but I think that one's going to be a little bit more of a barn burner than the last 2 years.
Yeah, I agree with that. If they win 3 in a row against an Ohio State team that's been this good by double digits or even, 15 and 20 plus, that would be absolutely incredible. I do have a gut feeling as well that game is going to be close. I would give Michigan an edge, but just I don't know what you want to call it, the law of averages or whatever. I think it would kind of even out there. But we shall see. And, Michigan scores late, and one of those is double digits or whatever. But, okay, we're going back to Chris on this one. Fact or fiction, and we do have two more. Average margin of victory for Michigan in the non-conference play last season was 49.7 points. Fact or fiction, Michigan will once again win by an average of 45 points or more against non-conference foes East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green.
Wow.
So a little bit of leeway there. Last year was almost 50, but this is just 45 you need to get to.
Just 45. Yeah. I'll say fiction. I think it'll probably be close to 40. It's yeah. You know what? It's semantics here. They're gonna be blowouts, but there have been games that where the score didn't reflect how much you blew a team out. They could win games 38-7 with 700 yards of offense to 150 or something like that, and just run the score and run the clock, and especially with the shortened games now, right? It's going to be a little bit shortened. They aren't stopping on first downs. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of an effect that has on scores around the country. Yeah,
or what kind of effect that's going to have on Michigan's 2-minute offense. I guess under 2 minutes, it's
right.
It'll still stop,
right.
But even you're at the 3-minute. People are going to get a little antsy in the big house, I think.
Right. Yeah. And in the past, they're running, a couple games last year, 28 first downs or something like that. And the clock's stopping. Now the clock's not stopping anymore when you pick up 3rd and 2 and ran the ball down somebody's throat. It's going to keep running. So I think it'll be shorter games for Michigan. And that's probably going to be one of the reasons why I'm going to go fiction.
I'm going to go fiction as well. I think last year, again, I'm not going to do the whole non-conference schedule, bit that the entire nation does, but that was probably historically bad in terms of, I think they played 3 of the bottom 8 teams in all of college football. I think this is a little bit more competently set of a schedule. I say little, but again, that was a team that there was kind of a lot of juice for the non-conference, given that there was still a quarterback battle that went into the season. There was still, there were a lot of guys that were working into new roles, that didn't get much playing time in 2021. I think this will be a little more low key. I think of seeing UNLV on the schedule reminds me of I think it was 2015 in Jim Harbaugh's first year. UNLV was coached by a former high school coach or something.
Yeah.
And Michigan was supposed to just wipe the floor with them. And it was 28-3 or 28-7, whatever it was. Wouldn't be surprised to see a non-conference game like that. So, won't panic if they don't win every game by 40 points, but I'll go fiction on that. Just a little bit of respect for a MAC team on the schedule this year as well.
You know who you didn't respect though is UConn. They made a bowl game last year, man. Come on. But
they're an afterthought.
I'm actually going to go fact on this one because kind of looking at some of these teams, and I'm about to be writing these opponent previews for our magazine, so we'll do a little bit more research as time goes on here, but these are pretty bad teams. These are not very good teams coming in. East Carolina, I think they made a bowl game last year. They had a pretty good offense, but they lost a lot. And then the other two are not very good, and no disrespect to Scott Loeffler, the head coach of Bowling Green, former Michigan player. But I don't know. I think I'll go over on the 45. Okay, our last one, Anthony, we'll get the nod here. Fact or fiction, and in CB, you talked about some of these road games. I did want to talk about these. Fact or fiction, Michigan will trail in the second half of one of the following games: at Nebraska, at Minnesota, at Michigan State.
Fiction. I'm going fiction. I think, though, there's a chance a few of those could be close, closer than we expect them to. But I don't see a way that Michigan State leads Michigan in the second half. Minnesota, I could maybe see it just because, play a similar style of just kind of they want to smash with the run game and things like that. Nebraska's kind of the wild card here, but, gut feeling being what it is, I'll say that they do not, but they are in competitive games and maybe, quote unquote, struggle to pull away.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Fiction I'm going to go with because these just aren't very good football teams right now. And, of course, Rutgers, remember last year they were trailing at Rutgers and, then they came out in the second half and absolutely destroyed them. So you can get something flukish like that where you sleepwalk through a first half and a couple bounces don't go your way, and then you blow them out. But I'm going to say that's not going to happen this year against one of those three teams. I think Michigan rolls all of them eventually. I think Nebraska, with that environment, I think Michigan will put them away in the second half, but I think they'll be comfortably ahead for most of the game.
Yeah, I had this written down as a fact, but you guys are kind of convincing me a little bit there. But I'll stick with it. I'll just say it's probably one of those two, at Nebraska, at Minnesota. Again, as I said earlier, I think one of them will be close. And I was thinking of that Rutgers game as kind of an example. And I know Rutgers is worse than probably at least Minnesota will be this coming season, but which maybe even lends a little bit more credence to that theory. But I'll say that one of them maybe has a halftime lead or something like that. But wouldn't be reason to panic with the way that Michigan – I mean, I don't even remember the exact stats in the second half because it kind of got thrown out the window a little bit in the TCU game. But the way they dominated those second halves and especially third quarters was pretty impressive. And I think with, similar coaching staff, they should have that opportunity again.